Because of how demanding this new game is, it actually prompted Digital Foundry, so a very prominent tech YouTube channel, it made them do this.
Well, instead of talking about ray tracing recommended settings, path tracing, or anything like that in today's video, I'm going to be talking about this. What is this?
They changed the video that they're going to make into, is it really that demanding? And that brings up a lot of questions because so many YouTubers or content creators, for example, one of the most prominent ones that's been talking about this is Daniel Owen. He's made multiple videos about the system requirements and even testing it in certain cases. And you can see by the views on these videos, they're getting quite a bit of steam. However, though, it puts us in a tough spot because it's very demanding, but generally speaking, it looks really good. So does that justify the system requirements that the game is asking for? And when I asked you guys if your system could actually run the game, this is the response that I got. So it seems like a decent chunk of people can play it. The thing is, like, with graphically demanding games, not everybody is always gonna be able to play it. There, nice, keep it right there. No more votes, please. As well as they're forcing you to use mesh shaders. Put in a graphics card that's older than an NVIDIA GTX 10 series or an AMD RX 5000 series, then you can't support the mesh shaders and you get this error when you start the game. Then when you hop into the game, it really destroys the performance. But it really begs the question, is Alan Wake 2 a trendsetter game? And this is the future that we should be working towards? Whoa. Character model looks really good. Or is this something that we really should scrap and just get rid of entirely? So in order to figure this out, I tested a bunch of graphics cards. Let's go. I did these tests by walking through the woods here because the woods is the most graphically demanding part of the game that I have found so far. Now, first, we're going to start with the RX 5700 XT, and this card doesn't support mesh shaders, but you do see here, this has enough horsepower behind it that you are able to get it to at least 30 FPS at 1080p low with FSR performance. I'm not saying that's good, but it is at least playable. Now here is the minimum specs graphics card, the RX 6600. You can see across the board, not that bad of performance. Remedy was saying this was only going to be getting 30 FPS at 1080p low with upscaling. But you can see that they completely underestimated that. And at native settings, we're getting over 30, close to 40 FPS. And if you turn on a little upscaling, you get a 40% boost and gets you up to the 50s in the FPS. And if you go to FSR performance, which I wouldn't recommend doing at 1080p, but it is getting you 60% faster with that card. And you can also see that we only lose 23% by turning on high settings. So the scaling isn't that dramatic between them, and they also don't look that different. So we can get close to a 30 FPS experience at 1080p high instead. This graphics card is very interesting, the RX 6700, because this one is very similar to the card that's in the PS5 and Xbox Series X consoles. You can see at 1080p low, we're getting over a 50 FPS experience here. Pretty darn playable, as well as you can turn on some upscaling if you want at 1080p and get a better experience. But if you jump to the high settings, you can also get a pretty good experience across the board, get a 60 FPS experience using FSR quality at 1080p high. Not that bad. You can also jump up to 1440p low, which is very similar to what these consoles are actually playing at. But I'm not sure if my numbers are a little bit off here. We're getting a giant boost to the performance with FSR quality on here. Now with the ARC A580, this is a $180 graphics card. You can see that your eyes are probably burning right now. The game didn't actually look like this. It's just how it came out in the recording for some reason. But you can see at 1080p low, we are able to get over 30 FPS. If we use a little bit of upscaling, we can get above that. And I would say the faster ARC A750 is just a better experience. If you turn on FSR quality, you can get close to a 50 FPS experience, sometimes around 40, mid 40s, but it's not all that bad. Jumping up to a $500 graphics card like the RX 7800 XT, I'm just starting this off with 1440p because this is what you'd probably expect to be playing at. On 1440p low, we're getting over 60 FPS with this card, but turning on a little FSR quality, which is completely fine, especially in this game, that we're going to talk about the upscaling quality a little bit later and the graphical quality of this game. You can get over 60 FPS and actually close to 90 a lot of the time. Now, if you turn on the high settings, you can see at native, we're getting under 60, but turning on FSR quality, again, if you want to play at high settings, that you can get a nice playable experience here. As well, if we want to turn on ray tracing. Now, I would not recommend turning on ray tracing, especially on an AMD card. At native, we drop all the way down to 20 FPS. And honestly, at least in the woods here, it's not worth the visual difference in the performance hit in this case. Moving on to the RTX 3080, you can find these things for about $400 right now on the used market. What I've noticed is usually the 7800 XT is faster than the 3080, but this game seems to be NVIDIA favored. The 3080 is coming out ahead of the 7800 XT a lot of the time. At 1440p low, you can see that we're getting well over 60 FPS, very smooth, very playable experience. Turn on DLSS quality, which looks great at 1440p, and it's just even better. If you want to play at high settings, this is DLAA, by the way. At native, you're not going to be getting a 60 FPS experience on the 3080, but you could just turn on DLSS quality and get over 60 FPS while playing at high settings. I don't think that's a bad compromise here. If you just turn on ray tracing low though, we get a very major performance hit under 30 FPS at native. DLSS quality is getting it up to the 40s, and that's not that bad. DLSS performance, these seem to scale like crazy using upscaling here, getting close to 60 FPS with high settings with RT low on. Being completely honest here, the performance was not that bad. And Alan Wake 2 is a very demanding game, but I was surprised when the minimum specs GPU performed as well as it did. An argument could be said that we were running at low settings a lot of the times to achieve this performance, but honestly, the low settings still looked great in this game. Like, check out the first impressions that we had on stream. Now I went to low settings. Holy crap. The game barely even looks different. Am I crazy? This means that the average person who isn't screenshotting and zooming in on all of the graphical settings or doing side-by-sides by themselves is probably not going to notice a difference between low and high settings most of the time. And that's why, honestly, my recommended settings for Alan Wake 2 is just to run the game at low, because you get some more performance and you probably won't notice a difference between turning it to high. However though, if you want to improve some of the issues that the graphics do have, like the shadows and the reflections, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card that's at least an RTX 3080 or faster, then you can turn on ray tracing low. And this does greatly improve the shadows and the reflections in the game, especially if you use ray reconstruction. The traditional denoisers look very grainy, whereas you use NVIDIA's ray reconstruction with DLSS 3.5, and it cleans up all that. It is absolutely gorgeous. Not to mention that ray reconstruction is able to save you a lot of performance with ray tracing, because the traditional denoisers in this game are extremely demanding and they don't even look that good. So turning on ray reconstruction and only putting it on the RT low preset means that you can save a lot on performance and the game actually looks better. Ray reconstruction is a great technical showcase in this game, even if not everybody is going to be able to use ray tracing in it. Then there's the whole other conversation with this. Well, if low settings and high settings look similar and they don't offer that much of a performance difference between them, then most of the scaling, graphic and performance scaling in this game has to be done with upscaling. And that is true. As you saw across the board with a lot of the graphics cards I tested here, yes, upscaling was the major driving force between the performance here. But this is a whole debate that I'm going to go into in a completely separate video. Because a game like this that is that graphically demanding, upscaling does at least provide a way to maintain or preserve the look of the game itself while giving you more performance. Yes, the image might be a little bit blurrier. Yes, there might be artifacts with the upscaling, but at the very least, it's nothing like having to turn off shadows or reflections or global illumination in the game that completely changed the visual presentation that the devs were going for. And in this case, Remedy, the makers of Alan Wake 2, I think are a very competent set of developers that know how to optimize their game. And in a case like this, if the game and the visuals that it's trying to achieve are just that demanding, then upscaling is a great way to maintain the visual presentation of the game while giving you more performance. And it's also very fast for the developers to implement, which saves them time when developing the game. But in this case with Alan Wake 2, I think it's completely fine, especially because the upscaling quality within this game is really good with FSR and DLSS. Alan Wake 2 is a crazy technical masterpiece from what I've experienced so far. The realism of the graphics within this game go to achieve levels of immersion and show the art direction of this eerie and uneasy atmosphere to its fullest extent. There's somebody chainsawing in the background. That's not in real life, that's in the game. That sounds so realistic, it's crazy. However, it does suck if this means that not as many people are going to be able to experience Alan Wake 2, especially because it's only $50 for a AAA game in 2023. That blew me away. That's kind of unheard of right now. This game definitely justifies its graphically demanding in nature, and I honestly think that it's pushing gaming forward by intertwining these crazy graphical features and also going to achieve a greater vision for the game itself. This is very exciting for gaming, and I'm excited to see where it's going to go into the future. That's about it for me. And I just want to say thank you for watching this video. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hopefully you have a good one. And peace.